the gold. It could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo, living in Kingston, Ontario. Flying solo once again. Ready to talk a lot of Frisbee this week. Lots happened. Some cool stuff on the horizon as well. So there's a lot to break down. Many things to talk about. Quick update from yours truly here. One of the tournaments we're going to talk about this week is a tournament I played in Richmond Hill. So that was super fun. Got to travel to the Big Apple, which is always something I enjoy doing, going west on the 401 from Kingston to Toronto area, stopping at the Big Apple. So I was able to bring two teammates over who'd never been. So that was a fun time. And after playing 2 tournament weekends in a row, excited to just have a chiller weekend. We'll be on the mic for a game. So kind of fun to be back in the booth. Going to be on color. So something I'm not always used to doing. So it's good to be able to get those opportunities and those reps in to try something different. So that is the update on my front. Danny is getting ready for U24s, which is coming on the horizon. We'll preview it next week, of course. Sans Danny again. But yeah, that'll be a good thing to talk about as we get ready for this upcoming tournament, and also some tournaments on the horizon. Nationals, it's not as far away as people think. And people are going to start booking flights to BC. Some of these teams may not be booking flights yet because some of these regions are going to be hot, is how I'm going to say it. Lots of bids, some not a lot of bids. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be main event. When we're talking bids, I'm actually going to bring Andrew Portwine, competition director, on for CUC Senior to talk about and break down how each division got to where it did with bids. Of course, it's in the manual. But sometimes it's easier for someone just to explain it. So that's what's going to happen later in the main event. Right now, we're going to hit the news. Lots to talk about. Lots of results. And a preview of a tournament coming up this weekend in the West Coast as well. So let's hit the news.
We now have breaking news.
All right, news time. We're going to start on the West Coast. Misfit Cup Juniors tournament happening. To no one's surprise, Dino, the top team in that area, Prime Ultimate Club's A squad there, taking it in both divisions. There was some parity in the women's division, except for Dino, of course, because Dino, they went 2 pool play games, 13-0, and then won 13-4, so not particularly close, but some of the other Misfit Club teams and the Prime second squad there having some good battles, Nitro being the second squad there. So Vortex, they lost to Canyon in pool play, which kind of threw a wrench into the bracket. Was told by our source, aka Danny, that Vortex may be the second best team in the tournament, but they had to face Dino in semis instead of the finals. Eclipse, after having not the best pool play, they were actually third out of their pool. They come in and they actually, first of all, win their quarter over Rain. Then they take down Canyon, but of course don't end up winning because Dino's just that good. So it will be interesting to see Eclipse and Nitro continue to battle during the season. It was 8-7 in pool play. So I was told, watch out for that. Okay. So jumping over open, pools G, H, and J. So the 3 pools there all go to seed. I should say that is incorrect. Let me just restate that. Pools G and H go to seed. J has Canyon, who was seated below Eclipse, actually defeating them 13-4, and they end up with the same score differential as the Dino boys team, plus 27. Couple crossovers in the semis here. Vortex taking down Fire Pants, love that name, 12-11, and Nitro, the second team out of that Prime Ultimate Club system, defeats Eclipse 11-6. And then that sets up the semis, where Dino takes down Nitro 10-6, club battle, and Canyon defeats Vortex 13-7, with Dino winning it all 13-8. So Vortex, you take third. Fire Pants defeats Eclipse for fifth. And so with these BC Juniors results, hey, we got the bids out. We'll, of course, talk about that later. And so Possible some teams to watch out for, okay? Out on the West Coast. All right, we're going to move over to Prairies. PBHG, everyone's favorite Prairies-based mixed team out here. They went to like a Wisconsin tournament, Wisconsin Swiss, something like that. Their first day was not sanctioned, but bracket play was. So I am not sure how that works. I found that actually kind of curious that you could have like a half sanctioned tournament, half not. So Wisconsin Swiss, hey, that tournament, the name, that's what happened. So PBHG wins their first or their quarterfinal matchup 12-6 over Mousetrap. Then they take down Minnesota Star Power 8-6 and then drop the final to Ramp. So some good results for PBHG. They will be next up at No Borders. So excited to see them in person. Hopefully I get to play them. That'd be fun. So congrats to PBHG. We're jetting over into the East Coast, really far. I shouldn't say East Coast because I've been told that that is incorrect. The eastern part of Canada. Congratulations to NSOM. So nothing sexier than old Montrealers. The Masters and the Grandmasters qualify for USA Masters Nationals. This year they did something different. They had like a super regional. So it was Metro Atlantic, which is kind of like the Maryland, DC area. Pennsylvania's in there as well. Combining with the Northeast, which is like Boston, the Massachusetts state, and of course New York, like as part of that Northeast section. So Northeast MA creating a super regional. Masters was in Granby, Massachusetts. NSOM was seeded third. There were 4 bids available. They actually win their pool with a big 14-12 win over the number 1 seed overall, all bashed out of Albany, New York. They defeat Concurrent in the semis 13-9. And then they lose to all bashed out in the finals in a rematch 14-12. But don't fret. They actually dropped their second game. It could have been a lose-lose-see situation, but it's not. They do lose to Join or Die 11-10. But by virtue of getting to the final previously, I guess they just didn't play a fourth place game. So I guess they were the third spot. So congrats to you. You get the third spot. So NSOM, that's really exciting. I've always wanted to, of course, we talk about getting U.S. college teams to go or Canadian college teams to the U.S. series. So expecting hopefully the same now in the Masters. So that's pretty cool. NSOM GM, they went to Philly, PA for their super regional. I know a lot of you don't watch college baseball, but college baseball has the same terminology like a super regional. So it's kind of interesting that USA Ultimate also took that. They went 1-1 in pool play, losing to the first seed, Black Cans 15-6. However, they go on to defeat Joystick 15-5 before dropping a really tight contest to No Country 15-13. But to get to Natties, they defeat Rest Stop 15-8. So congrats to you, the team from Montreal. 2 teams going to USA Masters Nationals, I guess they call it that, but there's also, of course, a Grandmasters, even a Great Grandmasters division. So kudos to you. Congratulations. This is going to be the quickest of news. Northern Flights is a tournament that I've never been to, but I know it's in North Bay. They got the 2-pointer out here. A couple development teams went in Thunder and Leverage. Thunder coming in third, so congrats to you there. Now, a tournament that happened in Ontario that had a lot of club teams, a couple pickup teams as well, and this pickup team ends up doing pretty well, so kudos to them. But we're going to start off with Touring Tune-Up, and then we'll talk about MGM after that. So starting off with Touring Tune-Up. Things go to seed for 3 of the pools, with KWG, Local 613, and Danger Noodle taking it. But Crux takes down Crank 11-8. That was the tricky 4-5. So that sends Crank into some crossover mayhem here. The 1 seeds crossover and battle it out. KWG drops a close one to Crux. Local defeats Danger Noodle on Universe 10-9. So now you have these like crossover pools that you carry over a score from a previous pool, but you also from one of the pool matchups, but you also cross over some new teams. So Crank emerges first. They had already beaten Soap Mistake 15-12 in pool play, and that helps them here as they also take down Zen and Axiom in that crossover pool. Soap Mistake gets second, and we're able to continue to be alive here. Mixed Berries defeats Richard and Friends 15-14, which is a great result for the Berry squad. and Richard and Friends come second in that pool by virtue of defeating Wine Club in pool play and winning out their other crossover pool games. So now we have quarters. We have Crux taking on Richard and Friends. Crux takes that one 13-10. Crank, I believe this was on Universe, taking down the host by virtue of the host, because Daniel I is the TD. So the host, Danger Noodle, 10-9. Soap Mistake defeats Local 613. The horn goes off and they score the last point, and the horn had gone off during that point. So Soap Mistake didn't have the great pool play results, but they're really just continuing things forward here. They have a couple Sixers players, a lot of touring players from around, some Pipe, GT, Incognito. So good, solid players coming together, playing the mixed division out here. KWG wins big over Mixed Berries in their quarterfinal 15-6. And so now we have semifinals. Crank defeats Crux in a rematch from pool play. So they beat them by the exact same scoreline by 3. They win 10-7. So Mistake continuing their run here. They defeat KWG 13-11, and they win it all, defeating Crank 11-10. Crux gets third, 12-11. And then Local and Richard and Friends split for fifth. They don't play that game. What do we take away from this? Hey, this pickup team, they come and make some noise. Perhaps that's a preview of when we talk about the BC, a lot of pickup teams out there, they're trying to make their way to nationals. So perhaps Soap Mistake giving you something to aspire to be like. But congrats to Soap Mistake. Like I said, pool play not going probably the way that they wanted, and yet they're able to win the games they had to, have a flawless Sunday out here. I believe they played an extra game as well in the morning as part of that crossover pool. So the fact that they had to do that as well, it's just cool. I know they're pretty much like you're not really calling lines when you're a pickup team, let's be honest. So just giving everyone touches, players from the other divisions, and we're able to do some cool things out there. So congrats to you, Soap Mistake. I know they were super proud of and just saw the elation, of course, and also some of the stuff through social media. So congrats to you there. Spirit standings. There were Spirit standings out here. They posted, or Touring Tune-Up did, on their social media. So Crux and Zen tie for first. Mixberry gets second, and Richard and Friends comes third. So they're not the actual full Spirit score, so I can't parse out any more than that information I have there. Now we're going to go to MGM. That happened in Ottawa, Ontario. We're going to start with women's. Solstice goes 3-0 in pool play. Their closest game is 15-6. Queens P goes they go 2-1. They win 12-5 over Silver Sisters, a Grandmasters team I found out of Ottawa, and they also defeat Lore 13-9. So Lore comes up empty in pool play with Silver Sisters getting that matchup. And so we have our semis, Solstice taking down Lore, and Queen Peas defeating Silver Sisters, with Solstice going undefeated, taking this one 11-6. So congrats to you. Hometown tournament, winning it as well. Lore gets an avenge with a pool play loss, defeating the Silver Sisters 11-5. So I always like when people avenge their losses, because you hear this at regionals especially, but it's very hard to beat a same team twice in a tournament. I think that's especially true at like regionals. And of course, I'm thinking about regionals even as I'm talking about the news here, because of the fact that it's on the horizon. So that's why it's on my mind here. All right, let's talk mixed. Pool A, Pandemonium, they're just going off here. They're just crushing it. Let's just say that. They're crushing it out here. They go 3-0 in both pools. So we'll start with their first team there, then Pool A. They go their closest game 15-6 actually. King Bear, the 4 seed in the pool, they go 2-1, including defeating the top seed. Global Aging 15-10. Elder, the Masters team out of Ottawa, goes 0-3 after dropping that game to Global Aging. And so Global Aging was told they are a Montreal Grand Masters team. A lot of side stack and isolating cutters in the middle. So you got the veterans out here making moves, but unfortunately they only go 1-2. Panda Mayhem, they also sweep Pushing Daisies. Believe they were the top spot in their pool. And the Grandmasters team didn't go for them on this day. They go 0-3. Flow, GTA based, goes 2-1. Firefly, Winnipeg's finest. Love that you came to this tournament. They go 1-2. So Panda Chaos, the team that was in Pool A, they defeat Pushing Daisies in quarters. Of course, everyone makes it with only 8 teams, 15-6. Panda Mayhem, same scoreline over Elder. King Bear, what is going on here? Same scoreline. I'm going to make sure this isn't a typo. 15-6 again. I don't know how all these quarters are becoming 15-6, but a trend out here perhaps. That's actually kind of funny that 3 quarters ended in the same scoreline. Hey, tight one over here. Global Aging, they finished third in their pool, but they get a semis berth by defeating Flow 15-13. And then not close semis, Panda Chaos defeating Global Aging 15-7, and King Bear topples Panda Mayhem 15-9. King Bear, shout out to Kingston and Barry's finest coming together to make a team. I know I've seen the Kingston Masters team practicing. I haven't obviously seen the Barry portion of that team practicing, so kind of cool to understand that they've come together. They're not going to practice as much as some of these other Masters teams that if they are practicing. And so they're able to play together, win this one 14-12. Third's not listed. Flow comes 5th. Didn't see the result for third there. It's always fun to give some love to the Masters players. They're still out here. They got families. They're playing Frisbee, making moves happen. So that is what happened in Canada. But hey, there was a tournament that happened. We didn't preview this, but we'll talk about it now. The results. Windmill all the way in Europe. Amsterdam's finest tournament. It is, I believe, a bucket list tournament for many different people. I have yet to play said tournament, and it would be nice to go. I'm sure a lot of people would say that. And so I'm very jealous of 2 Canadian teams that went. We talked about them in the news at some point that they were going to go, but we didn't actually preview it. So Farmers, let me make sure I get this right. Farmer Brown's Greenhouse out here in the mixed division, East Coast team, true East Coast team, like Nova Scotia players out there. And then we have Phoenix out of Ottawa. I looked at the picture of Phoenix, and I'm guessing that some of them, a few of them were pickups. Like I saw some players that definitely aren't playing Phoenix this summer. Some of them are, of course, and so kind of cool to get that experience for people just from the Ottawa area to come and play together. So let's talk about Farmers Brown Greenhouse first. They have some pretty sweet matchups here. They actually win, by my count, their first 5 games. They beat a Korean team. They beat Swiss Mixed. They beat Smog 1, which is a big deal because Smog 1 or Smog was at Worlds. So that's pretty cool. They beat them 15-8. They tie a team 9-9. I don't know how that's possible because there's also a tie in Phoenix's results. But Swedish Royals, they tie 9-9. They drop a game to Estonia Mixed. And then they finished 13th by defeating Lithuania Mixed 14-12. They're also 11th in Spirit. And there's 40 teams out here. So they're in the top half, a little bit even close to the top 10 here. So congrats to you. I know I'm going to say this. Frequent guest, co-host, Kelsey Hayden's team, being able to play that tournament. I'm excited to have her on at some point so we can talk about the experience of the tournament because it's pretty fun from what I've seen and stories I've heard. So now we're going to talk Open. Phoenix, they dropped their first matchup to the Czech Republic, 15-4. They defeat Chile out of Australia. They also tie against Hardfish out of Germany. And then they take a few losses in a row to Hades, Top of Nord out of Italy, and Devon, UK's favorite, Sexy Devon Fish Monsters, full name, I believe. They do get a W over Tuga out of Portugal and then drop their final game to a team out of Poland, 15-13, to come in 16th out of 20 teams. But hey, good news for them. They're top 10 in Spirit. They finished 8th. And you know how sometimes people feel about Spirit in Canada, or from teams out of Canada. So congrats to you, Phoenix, for even just being accepted to go. There are teams that don't get accepted by my knowledge. There's a wait list and all that. So the fact that you put in an application to go, that's pretty cool. Hopefully you can go next year, and maybe I'll put my name in the hat to go as well. So that's all the recap-y kind of stuff. We'll talk AUDL. That's always our last segment in the news. But there's a club tournament happening this weekend. Okay. So US club, I'm going to say, or with Canadian teams going. And this isn't like a TCT series tournament, which has maybe more of the glitz and glamour, but this tournament's happening in Eugene, Oregon. It's been a pretty common tournament on the West Coast. So Eugene Summer Solstice is its name. We're going to start in men's division here. There's going to be 18 teams. So the big three names that you have to know about in this tournament is, of course, Rhino Slam with exclamation, Sockeye, and Furious. So we're going to talk Furious first. They're the 3 seed overall. There's 2 power pools of 4, then 2 pools of 5. So we'll start with Furious. There's a couple more BC teams out here at this tournament. So they will play Switchback out of Seattle, Ziz out of Berkeley. The 6th seed got a chance to watch a few of those players when they were playing on Cal at College Nationals. So I'm more invested in this Berkeley Ziz squad now. And then they, of course, have their big game against Sockeye 145 local time against Sockeye 2 versus 3 rivals. They play each other all the time. They played at Border Bash. I believe, if I remember correctly, they split. So this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one. Oni's out here as well. They're the last seed in Pool C. They're the 17th seed. They're going to face off against Ghost Train out of Seattle, Oregon Trainwreck out of Independence, Oregon, Anchor out of San Francisco, not to be convinced with the defunct Anchor mixed team out of Halifax, and then Make It Rain also out of Seattle. Blackfish also in this tournament. They're the first seed in Pool D, so maybe people expected them to do a little bit better. They're the 10 seed overall. They play, it's either Zoof or just SOUF out of Seattle, Heartbreak out of Idaho, Green River Swordfish out of Davis, California, and then Eugene, Oregon's own Donors, the 18th seed, the 5th seed in their pool. That's who they match up with. And so if you finish second in Pool D, first or second, you can still get to the crossover, and then it's traditional quarter semis finals after that. So Oni in tough, seeded 5th, but hey, we've seen it before. I remember McGill was seeded last. I think in the whole tournament, they ended up in the finals of Centex. That was college, but it's still definitely possible. Blackfish trying to make a run. Would love to see them get a chance at a team like Ziz or like a Dark Star, who's the 4th seed in this tournament. Hoping for the best for these squads. Now, women's division, a couple teams in that one as well. 2 pools of 5. So we're going to start with Pool A. In Pool A, there's Schwa, no introduction needed, out of Oregon. Downpour, also out of Oregon. Fab or FAB out of the Bay Area, and Seoul. And then Remix, Alberta's finest, will be the 8th seed, 4th seed in their pool. Pool B has Drift out of Vancouver. They're the 3rd seed in the pool, 6th seed overall. They will have to take on Seattle End and Underground, the 2nd and 3rd seeds, respectively. Boise 7 Devils and Portland Raincheck. If you can finish 2nd or 3rd in the pool, you'll get to crossovers and their semis. So that's what we're hoping for. Remix going to have to punch above their seed. Drift going to have to hold their seed here. And so that's what we got with Summer Solstice. And disclaimer, once again, if there's a tournament that you've played in or something's happened and we don't know about it, send us a message on the Instagram. You can even message me personally on my Instagram or Facebook or wherever you know you can find me. So we love to talk about your team. You just got to send us the info. Only so much person power, manpower we got going on here. Now, talking AUDL, huge, and I mean huge. I can't understate how big that win was for Toronto, defeating the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. I'm not going to say that they're going to be out of the playoffs if they hadn't won that game, but this was a big win for them. They went 18-17. Really cool, calm, and collected on the last possession. Didn't do what Colorado did, which was fumble the bag and screw up the final possession. Didn't even get a throw off in their game against the Shred on Friday night. Toronto didn't fall into that trap. They take care of business, score with, I think, like a second left. And so they were able to get the victory there. Griffin McKee. I don't think he's going to get on any all-rookie teams because he doesn't play for – perhaps he will because Oscar did last year, but he had an amazing first season. Griffin's trying to continue that legacy here because he's having maybe not the best start. People didn't really know about him, but I think people are starting to recognize him now. He's on the O-line making moves, 4 assists, 2 goals, a block in this contest. Speaking of Stonehouse, he had over almost 600 yards of offense, 2 assists, 5 goals, and a block. James Lewis, actually just saw him as a player to watch for this coming week from the AUDL. He had close to 500 yards, an assist, 3 goals, and 2 blocks. And then just over 400 yards for Ty Barbieri with an assist, 4 goals, and a block. So they will be taking on the team that I'm about to talk about right now, Montreal. Montreal road trip, always tough. Missing U24 players, of course, as Worlds right around the corner. And so they drop games to DC 23-14 and Philadelphia 22-13. So in the DC contest, Tremblay Janka, Christophe, he has 2 goals, an assist, and 2 blocks. Phil Lebordet and Will St. Pierre, each with an assist and 2 goals. Not always going to have the highest stat sheet when the scores are as low as they are at times, or sometimes that happens. In the Philadelphia game, Phil Lebordet, 2 assists, 3 goals. Kevin Quinlan just 1 yard shy. Someone give it to him. But 1 yard shy, 499 yards, an assist and a goal. And then Tremblay Janka added again with 2 goals. And he gets a couple more blocks. Always been impressed with his deep defense. And so he's trying to carry this Montreal squad. They're going to take on Toronto this weekend. It's a Sunday afternoon contest, which I guess Montreal's used to because I know they played Boston in the afternoon in their windy stadium. We'll see how Varsity Stadium plays with the wind as well. Like I said, I'll be on the call for that. No predictions, of course, for this game. Toronto, you have 2 more home games left. You have Boston, Canada Day. You first got to take care of business against Montreal, and they definitely can't overlook them. Montreal, of course, playing for pride. They're out of the playoffs. Safe to say there. Actually, perhaps weirder things could happen. I don't want to pronounce them dead, but I haven't done all the calculations, but I think they're pretty much like they're dead in terms of their playoff hopes. But they're trying to dash some dreams, and I think if you're Montreal, whose dreams you'd rather dash than defeating like your country or, cross-provincial rivals? So that's what we got for AUDL News. And then they'll recap what happened. I'm very, very excited, of course, to be in the booth for that one. And that wraps up news. So coming up after this break, we're going bids. That's the name of this episode. That's what we're talking about. Andrew Portwine's coming on. Going to try to give you the best explanation possible, walk you through it with even throw some manual numbers in there, okay? So you can actually follow along at home, okay? We're going to do that right after the break.
Hey, this is Jamie Boss, coach of Ottawa's Crank Mixed Ultimate, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
Welcome to the main event. We're talking bids here at Nationals, and of course, we got to have competition director Andrew Portwine on the podcast here. Second time, I believe, Andrew. Is that right? Third time. Oh, third time. I must have missed one. So third time on the podcast, and when seedings come out, we're gonna have Portwine back on, of course. So you're gonna make it 4 at some point. But Portwine, you're looking very dapper out here. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, a little different when I'm at work, dialing in with you versus at home in my ultimate gear, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's all good, and we're gonna jump right in talking about bids because they have come out recently. So you'll probably have seen it if you're following any Canadian Nationals coverage there for those in the audience. And so we want to just break it down, just easier for someone to explain it, because I know a lot of people think they might know the manual, or I've seen some comments on the Instagram asking some questions, and sometimes you don't want to do the work to read the manual, which you should, by the way. But if you don't want to, Portwine's got you saved here because he's going to go through each division and how the bids got allocated. So we'll start with women's. And Portwine's just going to walk through it, and then I'll jump in with anything. But Portwine, you're just going to go through how things got sorted out there.
I will, yeah. And I will say, even I made a boo-boo this year as I'm early in my competition director day. So the manual is pretty complex. So I encourage people to read it. I will say in the manual, it is section 3 that addresses all of the bids and everything else. So start there. So for women's, what we're looking at is it's a division of 12 teams. If there's interest, it'll auto expand to 16, but we start the bids based on a 12-team division. We hand out the auto bids and the strength bids first, and then we move through the process after that. So for the auto bids, there's one for each region. And in women's, that would be Alberta, BC, Maritimes are together. Manitoba, Newfoundland, Labrador, Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan. So we're handing out 8 auto bids, one for each territory, or province, I guess I should say. Batch will correct me, region. Provinces later on in the broadcast. And then we hand out 4 strength bids based on previous year's results. This is where it gets to be a little bit complex, is we look at last year's results, but any region that sent multiple teams, we omit the top team. So last year's results, you will see Quebec and Ontario sent multiple teams to CUC in the women's division. So we removed the top Quebec team, which was first place. And we removed the top Ontario team, which was third place. Then we do the strength bids based on that. So Quebec finished second, so they earn a strength bid for that. Quebec finished fourth, they earn a strength bid for that. Ontario fifth, Alberta sixth. So those are our 4 strength bids. So after the automatic and the strength bids, it comes out Alberta has 2, BC has 1 bid, Maritimes 1, Manitoba 1, Newfoundland 1, Ontario 2, Quebec 3, Saskatchewan 1.
And to help jog people's memories, Cube came second and Venus came fourth. So that's how they earned the bids. And then Incognito came fifth out of Toronto. So that's how Ontario got that other bid. So if you're following along with the results from last year, we're going to do that as well, so you can kind of clearly see where they're coming from.
And Alberta in 6th place.
Yeah, Remix. Remix got that one, and because there was no other Alberta team, they get that as a strength bid, so that's why they have 2.
Yep. So that's where we stand with the bids. We look through, based on the deadline, registration deadline, how many CUC teams were registered to see what bids are requested by different regions. So in this case, Alberta has 1, BC has 4, Maritimes have 0. We can go through the full list if you want me to go through, but after we see the demand for the bids, we see which ones are unused. Probably easier if I show you the unused, because we know there's demand in certain areas of the country. So from the auto and strength bids that we had, Alberta has an unused bid. So they had 2 bids earned for 1 team that had registered. The Maritimes have an unused bid. Newfoundland and Labrador has an unused bid. So there are 3 unused bids, not enough interest in those regions to utilize the bids that they've earned. Those now become wild cards. Because they're unused and there wasn't demand, they fall down and they're assigned through the wild card process. At this point, we know that there is interest to auto expand the division from 12 to 16. That's in the manual, that if there's interest, we do that. We want as many teams playing. So now we go up to 16 and we'll assign the wildcard bids up to 16 teams to fill the division. The wildcard ranking is determined by whichever region has the most teams registered to play, and that includes CUC and regional only teams, so total teams registered. That's important. And if there's a tie, it then goes to the region that has the most players registered on those teams. So in this case, we have BC, Ontario, and Quebec looking for extra bids above what they had earned originally. Based on that order, Ontario had the most teams and is first in the wild card. Quebec. Apologies. Quebec is first in the wild card rankings. Ontario is second. BC is third. So now we assign the wild card bids based on that order of operations. So as we go through, we had 2, 4, 6, 7 wild card bids. So each of them get 2. And on the last rotation, Ontario actually gets the last bid. Quebec was full. After the first 2 wild cards were assigned, they have a bid for every team that wanted one. So Ontario, now being the second ranked team, gets the last wild card bid because they had more demand. So, do you have questions? Was that clear? I may have whipped through that a little bit, but.
So that's how we ended up where we are now. So I think that's pretty clear. Once again, you can see all the bids on Ultimate Canada's website. So pretty much every women's team, if you want to go, you can go, except for one. So tough for that division. So we're gonna, or I should say tough for the BC region specifically. But we're going to move on to Open here because, some people got some thoughts about the Open I saw in the Instagram comments. So why don't you walk us through the Open now, Portwine?
For sure. So same layout as women's. It's a 12-team division. If there's interest, it'll auto-expand later in the process. We assign 4 strength bids. So 1 auto bid to each of the regions as outlined earlier. The 4 strength bids. And based on last year's results, we would omit number 2, Alberta, number 3, Ontario, number 4, Quebec, and number 6, BC from the results of last year because they sent multiple teams. We removed the top performing team. So strength bids would be earned by Manitoba for their first place finish, Ontario for 5th place, Ontario for 7th place, and Quebec for 8th place to earn the strength bids.
And for the reminder, that is General Strike who won the championship last season. And then 5th was Boat, 7th was Phoenix, and then in 8th was Manic out of Montreal. So that's who earned the bids there.
Yeah. So as we go through that, I will jump down to unused bids. There were none in Open. So all of the earned bids had interest from the regions to use them. So that leaves us with 4 wildcards to hand out because we auto expand based on interest to 16 teams. And we have the wildcard ranking is Quebec is 1st. Ontario is 2nd, and it gets interesting as both regions had the same number of teams registered, but Quebec had 2 more players register. So for teams out there, register, get a full roster. Even if you're going regionals only, it helps earn bids. So get teams registered to even play in regionals. So 2-player difference to get that extra wild card or the potential for an extra wild card. So Quebec 1st, Ontario 2nd, BC 3rd, Alberta 4th. And because there's 4 wild cards, we handed 1 to each of those regions because they had demand for a wild card bid.
So when you say it like that, it makes a little bit more sense because one of the comments was BC is hosting. Why do they only get 2 bids? Well, the answer is they did not earn a strength bid last season, with Blackfish being their highest finishing team coming in 6th. So that's why that happened. So BC, this is I guess your call to action to do well this year, and then you can get more bids for next year. So Open seemed pretty straightforward. I'm not going to lie, Portland. Once you discussed the tiebreaker, it kind of makes sense. There's no Alberta has 2 teams going. They get 1, and there's no more kind of going down the chain here. So I think Open's pretty cut and dry, but this last one is the trickiest division. So let's spend a little bit more time in mix because that one has some tiebreaker madness. Let's just say that. But explain first how it all works because there's a difference in mixed and how the original bids are given out.
For sure. So mixed is a much larger division. So it's 20 teams. If you look in the manual, you will see there's different regions for the larger divisions. So as we hand out the automatic bids, it's basically provincial boundaries. So there's 1 for each province, and then the territories are actually combined together, and the territories get a bid as well from the auto bids. If you really want to follow along, that's 3.2.4.2 in the manual. I'm sure there's going to be a few folks out there that really want to follow along. So we hand out 10 bids, 1 for each province, plus the territory. So there's 11 of the 20 bids are given out auto bids. With the larger division, we hand out 5 strength bids, not 4, like we did in the other divisions. So I know you're up on the results, Theo. So last year, the strength bids were earned by number 2, Manitoba, number 3, Ontario, number 5, Ontario, number 7, Quebec, number 8, New Brunswick. So those were the teams that performed well and earned strength bids for their provinces in this case.
Yeah, for those following along, that's PBHG earning a silver medal. Danger Noodle coming in 3rd. Crash from Kitchener-Waterloo coming in 5th. Harfang placed 7th, with their Quebec's top team finishing right above them, and Red Fox coming in 6th. And then Spawn of New Brunswick placed 8th. And so, once again, for the BC folks out there, the next best BC team was 10th in Fable. So that is why BC did not get a bid there. Just to keep them informed out here, Portwine. We got to make sure they know.
Yeah, it's a great point. And when you send multiple teams and the top team becomes eliminated, it really shows that the depth of each region is what earns the strength bids, right? It's easy to sort of take off that gold medal team, but Ontario had a 3rd and a 5th to earn some strength bids. That's good depth and good performance from the region as a whole, right? Okay, so we've gone through, we've assigned those 5 strength bids on top of the auto bids. I'll go through the unused bids. So Manitoba has an unused bid. New Brunswick has an unused bid. Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, PEI, and the Territories. So we have 6 unused bids. So this leaves us with a mess of wildcard bids to assign now to get us up to the 20-team threshold. To keep it simple, as we're going through, only 3 provinces wanted wildcard bids or had the demand. So that's Quebec, Ontario, and BC. And this is where it gets exciting. I'm not afraid to admit I made a boo-boo on this the first time. So as we were going through, BC and Ontario had the same amount of teams registered. So the tiebreak goes to the total number of players registered in mixed. Lo and behold, with my luck, BC and Ontario had the exact same amount of players registered in the mixed division on all of their teams. So the tiebreak after that is the total number of players between BC and Ontario for all of the senior divisions, so the entire CUC tournament. And in that case, Ontario had the greater number of players total in the senior divisions. So they earn first in the wildcard rankings based on double tiebreaker.
And we also want to clarify it's teams that signed up on time, because if you look now, there's more BC teams. But from what I'm gathering, obviously there's a deadline, and certain teams out of the west side of the country did not sign up on time. Is that correct? I just want to confirm that.
So we take a snapshot at the deadline, and we use that as our registration snapshot of the system, because the system stays open. You know, teams can still register, as you made the point. A few days down the road, we've got different numbers of teams than we had at the deadline. So it looks different for people that may have tried to calculate bids on their own a day or two after the deadline. So Ontario
I just wanted to show that so that people understand, because if they look now, they would say that doesn't make sense. But once again, it's based on the deadline and not what you see currently on your computer screen.
Yep. And again, just to reiterate, that includes CUC teams as well as regional only teams. That's total teams registered to take part in the series. So Ontario on a double tiebreak gets first in the wild card rankings, BC second, Quebec third. So as we go through, we can go through 2 full rotations. So each of them get 2 wild card bids. And then we get down to, actually we can go through 3 rotations, hand out 9 bids. So they all get 3. And then because Ontario is first in the pecking order, they get that last, the 10th wildcard bid, because they went through 3 full rotations. So Ontario gets that last one as the extra bid.
So that's why now as you look, you'll see Ontario has 7. BC has 4, and then Quebec remains the same with 5. And, you know, people might say, why is it that Quebec only has 5 teams signed up and they get 5 bids? Well, that's just, as Portwine has gone through, that's how the manual has it out. So often I think there's been a misconception that, if you have more teams signed up, it means like more bids potentially will come your way. But there's other processes to help get there. And so now hopefully people and teams are a little bit more aware. So you'll sign up on time, both also the series and regionals only, get as many players as you can. And then also you got to just have good results in all the years and not just the years that you want to go. So that's what makes it tricky.
Yeah, I think that's the two main points I take is sign up for the regional series because you can get wild card bids. And I know everybody's playing to win, so this is kind of a moot point, but the better you do with your non-top team gets strength bid potentially. So, I mean, that second BC team or second Ontario team really needs to climb the standings to earn future strength bids for their region, right? I know they're playing to win. Obviously, that's easy to say, hey, just do better and get strength bids. But that's where it does come from. So the results matter.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. And hopefully in the audience that will help you. After this break, I'm going to talk about which regions are going to have some hot regionals coming at you and talk about some early favorites. We'll obviously do a full preview when they do come and rosters continue to be solidified here. So look out for that. And then we'll also talk a little bit of juniors as well. Can't forget about them. Someone else, Dean Wright, legend, is the competition director there. So he would be the one to ask about those things, not Portwine. So just a distinction for those in the audience. But Portwine, thank you for coming on. Any final thoughts? Your third time on the podcast, and it's never easy because you got to bring sometimes some good news and bad news as well.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'd say is just an apology to BC. I did give them the tie break, and one bid did have to shift from BC to Ontario. But I guess as a competition director in training here in year 2, that comes with the territory. So BC, I apologize, but maybe next year you get some strength bids out of it as well. So
yeah, that's gonna be that's a quick review. That's gonna be a hot regionals coming at you. I wish I could fly in and watch because it's gonna be a little bit crazy over there. So Portwine, thank you for taking time out of your workday, looking dapper, like I said, coming on talking bids. Hopefully for you in the audience it's more clear. But Portwine, thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you, Theo.
So we'll take a quick break and then I'll go through a quick mini preview of some of the regions coming up, or regionals coming up. See you then.
This is Nick House from Regiment Ultimate in St. John's, Newfoundland. You're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, Portwine, we appreciate him coming on the podcast, hey? That's good stuff. I'm just going to go through the bids because we talked about them briefly, but it's easier if you can visualize the bids itself. So we'll start with how we started in my discussion with Portwine. We'll start in women. So BC has 3. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba have 1 apiece. Ontario has 5, and Quebec has 5. So in terms of this segment, going to talk about like the hot regions. Well, there's only one hot region, and that's going to be BC. They have 2 regionals only teams, so I'm not really going to talk about them. There's 4 teams, 3 bids. So 4 teams, 3 bids. Traffic, lock them in. And then there's Drift, Drive, both out of Vancouver, and then Hucklebears out of Victoria. So spicy stuff. Someone out of that 3 is not going to go. All the other women's teams in the country, if you wanted to go, you could have gone. But the real thing I want to talk about here is the fact that there is a full women's division. There wasn't one last year, okay? The fact that there is one this year is something to celebrate. So in some ways, it sucks that one team can't go. In some ways, I think people should be celebrating that. This is going to sound bad for the team that doesn't go because it's at the expense of them, but you should be celebrating the fact that someone doesn't go, because that means there's a lot of interest, and hopefully that continues to build and help develop the women's game here in Canada. So, of course, it sucks for the one team that wants to go, but once again, it means that there are more players, people wanting to play in this division. That's only good things. So that's my preface there. Let's jump in. We're going to talk mixed, okay? Hot regions. I mean, Ontario with 7 bids now. Even with 6, I wasn't going to say it was a very hot region. Based on the results we've seen early season, some would say that there were clearly 6 teams involved in that top. And now you add another squad in there. And so 11 teams going for it. So I guess we'll talk Ontario right now. 2 regionals only teams in Wine Club and KWG. Who could, throw a wrench into things here? But my prediction early on is going to be the last bid is going to be between Zen and Mixed Berries. Much love to development teams, Remix and Axiom. Remix, you do have a victory over Zen in this season, so it could happen again. But Zen and Mixed Berries is going to go at it. Mixed Berries getting the better of that contest. I'm just trying to see where it is. We have this document we're loading up. One day we'll release it to the public, but loading up this document where you can see all the different results from teams. And so Zen lost to Mixed Berries in the 9th place quarters at Tux 10-9. So perhaps they might get the better of them at regionals. That's their hope. So that's my prediction here. There's no clear, of course I'm playing this division, but I don't think there's a clear team in Ontario that's going to come out in mixed. I think there's going to be a lot of people picking different teams. And so it'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top. All right. This is a real hot region. 13 teams by my count. 4 bids. BC. Come on, who's going to come out of it? I'm not going to give my prediction of who's going to come out of it. I'm just going to tell you some teams to keep an eye out on, or teams I think will be in contention, and then a couple teams to keep an eye out on. Red flag, auto, put them in. They're going. Okay, so there's no question there. All right, now it gets interesting. Blaze, you got some names I recognize. Ben Burrell, Aiden Weeb, Cole Keffer out here. So some TC juniors legends. And of course, Ben Burrell has played lots of years of club. So watch out for Blaze. You got Flight Club, Breton Tan, Lily Huang, Krista Aiken, Oleana Chan, Keith Chow. Those are just a few of the names on this list. Okay. I know Keith Chow because he went to Western, so shout out Mustangs. Full Sencat, Janelle Siwa, Andrew Ling, Kyle Sia, Nicholas Choi, some ex-red flaggers on that team. You got Strawberry Kitty, Aiden McKibben, Jenna Lining, Shannon Wu, Zoe Luke, Solana Wong, Leisha Zhang. Tyler, buddy, you live in Kingston. I hope I get your name right. Guna Sekara, Neo DeBrew, Thomas Owenhart. So a lot of ex-Eclipse, top level like junior players out there in Vancouver. They're on this team. So I just named 5 teams, and then I'm going to say keep an eye out for TT as well. Super Dumplings in the mix. There's a few other teams too that could surprise. So I've listed, 7 for 4 bids. So that region is going to be hot. Like when Multi-World does its like regional rankings for tournaments, like at college, they usually put like a fire symbol, fire emoji. This one needs to be like at the highest spice level. This one's going to be crazy, okay? We're going to stay in BC. Open as well. 5 teams, 2 bids. And I talked about it briefly in the interview with Portwine. You hosting has nothing to do with the bids, because there was a comment about that. You hosting does nothing for the bids. You got to follow the bid picture, what the manual says. So now you know. Okay? Furious, Auto, lock them in. They're going. Okay? Now, who's going to get out of this? Oni, Blackfish, Surf from Victoria, Element. I saw some, juniors' names from Eclipse that I recognize. So essentially, I'm going to be bold here. Not that bold. 4 teams fighting for 1 bid out of BC. Tough. There's going to be some BC players are going to go to the complex in Vancouver in August and just be watching on the sidelines. That's rough. Now, some more hot regions in the open. Let's go to Ontario. 8 teams by my count. 4 bids. Goat, lock, put them in. Phoenix? I'll lock you in too. So that's 2 bids already gone. Now, who do you have left? Pipe. Have they lost a game this year? The answer is no. GT, big W over Quake. Told you about this at Jazz. Hound has beaten GT this season twice, I believe. I'm going to actually double check that before I hype this up here and get use of this great document that we have. So, okay, document has failed me. That is fine. GT and Hound, they've had some battles, and they're hoping to do that once again. And, it looks like the document has worked finally. So 12-9 in the bronze medal game and then 10-9 at Tux over GT. So, hey, could happen again. Now, there's also too bad. Can never count out a too bad team. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to preface this for all the regionals. Weird things have happened. This too bad team almost won last regionals. They almost took down Hound. And I know Hound players from last year don't want to hear it. But you almost lost. Okay? And this too bad team, they did have Ryan Wilson, who's not there anymore. But hey, like I said, weird things can happen. Let's take a look. Once again, if you want to see these rosters, you can go on, just search up CUC 2023 registration, and then you can see who's on the roster. So some teams, let's say they haven't announced their roster, you can still see it. So as of this recording, too bad got 22 players going. Definitely see some players I recognize, a couple ex-Queens players, some U of T as well, some ex-GT, Zach Young's in there. David Murray played Union. So this team is going to have some players. They don't practice. They're a pickup team. Will they make some noise? The question is, if they get the bid, will they even go? That's a whole other question. Phoenix and Roy, I hate to say it, but you're on the outside looking in. Okay, and if you do make it, you can use this as a receipt. I'll say it again. Phoenix and Roy on the outside looking in. But if you do get in, you can use it as a receipt and tell me I was wrong, okay? Now, Quebec, open. 7 teams, 3 bids. Mephisto, out. Quake, Manic. You got flat ballers out there. Quartz. There's some contenders here. The real question is this flat ballers team. Go look at their roster. Okay. Charles Asselin out there. Vincent Lemieux. Nabil Chaouch, Miguel Goder, Jordan Ferries. Anushka Beaudry listed as a coach. That's kind of hype. Can this team do it? And, well, first of all, can this team do it? Second of all, will this team go? Because I asked them if they were going to go. Right now, the answer was TBD. Also throw Magma in there. I don't think Magma is going to get there, but they're the other team that's going to be at this tournament. That's not just regionals only. There's a few regionals only team, like a T-Rex out there from Torre-Riviere. So 3 bids. Am I locking in Mephisto? I am not going to lock in Mephisto just because I know what time of year it is. And they play a week before the Ontario one. So I believe they will be missing some people from what I've gathered. And they do have some U24 players. So you never know with a shorter roster. It could happen. So Mephisto, I'm not going to lock you in just yet. Okay. Out is a contender. They came second at Jazz. Quake haven't showed their full potential yet. I was hyped on them. They're a contender. Manic. Flat ballers. Quartz, I'll throw you in there. I know I gave you some shade. I'm going to say 6 have a shot. I don't think Magma does. So 6 have a shot, 3 bids. There's going to be some hot regionals in the open division. Okay. And that's going to wrap up senior. Hey, I didn't forget about you juniors out there. Just to recap, in terms of the bids, I didn't say the bids of the regions that are hot. So I'll summarize the regions that don't have the hot ones. Quebec has 5 in mixed. New Brunswick, Spawn will be going. Manitoba has 1. Alberta and Saskatchewan also have 1. And then the open, Alberta will be sending 2 teams. Manitoba as well. Saskatchewan has 1. The Maritimes will have 1 out of Nova Scotia, Red Circus. And then Newfoundland, of course, will be sending Regiment. So that's who's wrapped up. Who's already going because they've registered. Of course, if a team drops out, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Now, let's talk juniors. Junior Open, there's 7 BC bids, 1 Alberta, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick, and Newfoundland will all have 1, so those teams will be going. Manitoba has 3, Ontario has 6, and Quebec has 3. So the hot region, of course, is going to be this BC Open side. I count 16 teams, which is kind of nuts. There's like 3 there were 3 Vortex teams listed. There was like a V2, V3. Of course, you got Dino. That's the favorite there. Eclipse, Canyon, Helios. I could list all the teams. You can look it up on the site. 7 bids, 16 teams. Some pretty good teams are going to be left out here. There's a team called J-Pod, Fire Pants. I talked about them earlier. So that, of course, is a region to look out for. Ontario, 6 teams, 6 bids. So everyone's going. Same thing with Quebec. So no real drama there. Women's or junior women's, BC has 6. Ontario has 4. Quebec has 3. And Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Alberta have 1 each. There's also a development bid to be determined. So that we'll keep you posted on that. 20 teams in junior women's, 24 in junior open. In BC women's, there's 9 teams, 6 bids. So Canyon's in there, Dino, Eclipse, Helios, that Mischief system, and then Nitro, Rain, and then 2 Vortex teams to round that out. So I said the same thing for junior open. There's going to be some good teams that don't get to go. In Ontario, 5 teams, 4 bids by my count. So there's a Barrie team out here. Chain Reaction, love the name. Toro, Uproar, Wicked East, and Wicked West. So there could be a battle between a couple more development teams to try to get in. And the way juniors is set up, there of course is kind of the power pool in terms of like the top teams getting to play each other early on, and some of the more development teams getting to play each other. I think that's still good. Okay, so if you're development team in Ontario and Quebec or wherever you are, BC, be excited to go. You might not contend for a championship, but you could contend for a championship a year later or 2 if you continue to play the sport and continue to move up. So get those reps in. Have fun. Quebec will be going with the teams that have signed up, Titan, Origine, and I'm going to say Cimes, CIMES, for any French people that want to correct me there. All right. That wraps up, I think, a pretty action-packed episode. Girthy wanted that. There's your shout-out, Danny. Girthy episode. So once again, follow us on socials. We'll have more stuff coming, especially with U24. Try to post results as they come, and also any live streams that happen. So stay tuned for that. If you forget to turn on the live stream, you'll see our socials, and then we'll remind you to go watch it. Okay. So now we're going to get ready for Worlds next week. We'll, of course, recap Summer Solstice as well. Nationals on the horizon. Regionals not too far away. So that's all the news we got this week. No subscriber, only going to take a break from that this week. Subscribers, I got you next week. Don't worry. I'm excited to, once again, maybe talk some more stuff about the booth. I don't know. We'll come up with something for that one. But thanks again for following us and listening to the podcast. Tell your friends about it. Like and subscribe. All that good YouTuber things. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.